Eagles at Cowboys, Seahawks at 49ers, Bills at Chiefs, and all the Sunday NFL games. We're going to be talking the best props on the board. Welcome to Prop It Up, and happy Friday to everybody. Friday starts the weekend, and we're here to make your weekend a profitable one through the props betting market. I'm Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, being joined, as always, by my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. We're going to go over every Sunday game, tons of props, and there's no reason to wait any longer. So while we're breaking these down, guys, please hit the like button. It really helps us out. And of course, leave us your best bet. Tell us what you like for this weekend. Let's get into it. Andrew, coming to you first. Buccaneers at Falcons. On paper, not a great game to watch, but certainly some big names. Bijan Robinson, Mike Evans, some good names for some prop players. So what do we like in Buccaneers at Falcons?
Andy, good to be here with you as always, man. I'll start things off with someone that's maybe not as much of a big name. I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith over 10.5 receiving yards. This to me is one of those buy low spots. If you remember, start of the season, this is a guy I was looking to bet on, and they've kind of gone away from him. They spread the offense out a lot more. Of course, you mentioned the run game being a factor. His number going all the way down to 10.5 to me when it was in like the 20s near the start of the season. This is a buy low situation here. He's gone over this number in 8 of his last 10 games. And one thing interesting, Tampa 28th in receiving yard defense, 25th in receptions. And I just think you look at the crowd around him, you look at the guys that are getting all the touches, you know, they're getting, 6-7 targets, some of these big name guys. But for him, you need like 2, maybe 3 receptions to get over 10.5 receiving yards. So to me, this is kind of a low hanging fruit number that I found in this game. And then the next one is quite simple. Look, I have been someone that has not always been a anytime touchdown scorer player. Okay. I have not liked the variance of, trying to pick these 4-1, 3-1 special team, defensive scorer. I'm going to keep it short and simple. Mike Evans will get a touchdown no matter who he's playing, whether if it's been a bottom feeder or a top team like the 49ers. He's finding his way into the end zone. And because of the type of team they are, the Bucs have struggled recently, over the past several weeks. That price has not really been adjusted too much. You're getting plus 130 here. And this Atlanta team, 23rd in passing touchdowns, but second in rushing touchdowns. That's quite a bit of a difference. So, judging based on that, hopefully we see them put it through the air, and at plus 130, we see Mike Evans in the end zone once again. So 2 that I like in that game, Andy. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep riding this Mike Evans prop until it slows down, because every team, despite struggling, has to have one guy that's always getting in there. And right now it's Evans.
Gosh, Mike Evans, 10 seasons with 1,000 yards. Is this like one of the most underrated guys of our lifetime? It's amazing. He's never mentioned in like the best of the best. And you're looking at his stats, like, God, this guy just produces no matter who's at quarterback. So great breakdown for the Buccaneers and the Falcons. I'm going to take a look at the Lions and the Bears. Oh my. And I have to look at Justin Fields. And I like his rushing total here, 62.5. Check your books, as this line has already started to move. Opened up at 60.5. Last night it was at 62.5. So check your books on this one. Lions have injuries on the defensive line. They just put one of their best run stoppers on IR. 59 yards rushing against the Vikings and 104 against the Lions 2 weeks ago. Andrew, he has 30 rush attempts combined the last 2 games. So he comes back from injury and is not scared to run the ball. And Detroit, this rush defense at the beginning of the year was amazing. They are the complete opposite right now. They've given up 135 yards rushing per game the last 3 games. So this was an easy one for me to look at the Bears, the props for the Bears, Justin Fields over rushing. And then I think we have to look at Jahmyr Gibbs over receiving. This line is tricky and sneaky, and I 27.5 just seems stunningly low. The Bears are the worst in the league at giving up receiving yards to running backs. They give up 59 yards receiving to running backs. And Jahmyr Gibbs had exactly 59 yards receiving against this Bears team 3 games ago. That was his highest of the season. So surely this line is going to get into the 30s by kickoff. So if you're going to take this one, I would take it immediately. But a great matchup for Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think this is a Jahmyr Gibbs game, not a David Montgomery game. Andrew, I lost a bet on David Montgomery last week, had him over, 63.5 rushing. He had 47 at halftime. And then they just completely got away from him. Their play calling was atrocious in the second half, completely predictable. And I was really disappointed what they did with David Montgomery, but I think he's going to have a tough time running the ball, and this screams Jahmyr Gibbs all day over his receiving. So I like Justin Fields over his rushing and Jahmyr Gibbs over his receiving in this game. Andrew, I know you got a nice little 7-3 run on NFL props. That is beautiful. So while we're breaking down these games here, guys, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, and Andrew, tell us what you have up and where we can find you at.
Andy, no huge plays going for me this weekend in the NFL. Just a variety. We got a prop pack. I like a lot in a lot of these different games, but it's kind of just one or two that I'm finding in each game that I really do like. So, guys, join me. Get that prop pack, and of course, when you buy the prop package, and I update it and I put a new one in there, obviously you'll receive that as well. NHL doing pretty well with the NHL team totals on a 12-5 run with the team totals. So feeling pretty good right now, Andy. And just like you with the college football, I'm trying to aspire to be like you with the college basketball. One play is all I need. So we'll see if I can get there like you. We're slowly getting there, but the team totals are my business with college basketball as well. Focus on one team, and I actually have a play going tonight in college hoops action. But also a great time to mention that year-end special, right? I mean, the sooner people buy it, the more they save, $199. And we always preach it, but I think that a deal like that wouldn't be great if you had a handicapper that just does one sport. Andy and I do most sports that are out there. So if you want to get our plays, it's better to get, an all sports package, not just a one, particular sport.
Absolutely. That special it's an instant discount. It's normally $299 for the end of the year, down to $199. If you haven't gotten it yet, lock it in now so you can start getting these plays immediately. Each day you wait, you're wasting one day. And honestly, last couple of days have been very low volume, but starting today, man, it ramps up. It's the weekend. So take advantage of that and check out Andrew at WagerTalk.com. Andrew, you've got the Colts and the Bengals. Interesting game. It's the rivalry renewed. Jake Browning and Gardner Minshew. I know we've been gearing up for that all season. So what did you find in this Colts and Bengals game?
You never fail to amaze me, Andy, when you actually get me for a second. I'm like, wait, is this? Oh, yeah, no, he's just he's being completely sarcastic about this matchup. Look, I mentioned Pittman Jr., Michael Pittman last week, and I'll mention him again, man. His targets are just so high right now that it would be an anomaly for him not to go over his receptions. I mean, I talk about sometimes looking at receiving yards versus receptions versus receiving, rushing plus receiving, all this stuff. But when you're looking at Michael Pittman, you literally just want to look towards receptions because the volume that he's being looked at, the amount of times he's getting the ball, he's gone over 6.5 receptions in 7 of his last 10 games. And when you look at this matchup that he has, I feel like this Bengals team has kind of struggled against number one guys. Really, they're almost like they're shutting down the support guys. But like some teams, I look at it and I break things down and I'm looking at past scores, right, for the Bengals, and I'm like, okay, who have they shut down the other team? And a lot of times when I've taken big unders this year, it's been, okay, this team always seems to shut down the number one guy. This Bengals team struggles against the guys getting all those targets. And to me, 6.5 is just not a number that they've adjusted. He has at least 8 receptions in 6 of his last 7 games. We just need 7 out of him. So I'll look towards that. And obviously we know that they have been mixing in the run game. That's who the Colts are with Zach Moss. But when they're passing the ball, they're looking towards his direction. And last week, Andy, I was happy, man. I had a change of heart. I was going to take the under as a client play on Mixon on his rushing yards. And what I ended up doing was just taking Mixon on over on his receiving yards. And it cashed in the first quarter, I believe, or first half at least. I'm going to go right back to it. I mean, over 21.5 receiving yards. Colts are 17th in receiving yards against on the season. Mixon has hit this number in 5 of his last 6 games. And you made the joke at the start about kind of this, we'll say, not very exciting quarterback matchup. But you know what? Browning's actually been okay. But I also feel like they've set him up for success. And I know that we always rip on players, but I feel like I need to start giving credit or dissing coaches more. It's something I haven't really done much on the prop show. I got to give credit to the coaching staff of the Bengals. I like the play calling. I like what they're doing here. And, you know, yards after catch is a great thing for Joe Mixon. Sometimes he only needs 2 receptions to get over this number. Let's be real here. He's simply more effective on this team when he's catching balls and he's not running, honestly. And really, whenever he goes over his rushing yard number, it's when he has a very, very high volume. I think that if you're ever looking to bet rushing props on Mixon, you might as well just take attempts, because you'll pull your hair out waiting for him to get to his yards. You might as well just take his attempts there, because if he's going to get his yards, he's probably going to cash his attempts prop as well. I'm expecting maybe a T. Higgins bounce back in this game. He's been a little bit inconsistent. I think he'll get it together. But to me, the Mixon receiving game, you still have an inexperienced quarterback despite coming off a good effort. I feel like that's one we have to look at again.
Love it. Yeah. Gosh, what a strange game this is. Gardner Minshew and Jake Browning. I got a 5% play up this weekend, actually, Andrew, and it's a 5% awesome. In the NFL. It's available on the domestic books. And we just combined NFL and NCAA football. I remember this a couple weeks ago, Andrew. I was like, man, this low volume thing is frustrating because I keep putting in the losers and I leave off the winners. And you were like, it's going to turn around. It has turned around. We're 22-3 in our last 20.
Whoa. It turned around, okay? It turned around.
It turned around in our last 25 football picks. So it's a 3-0 NCAA run and a 19-3 NFL run. So this weekend we were like, let's just put them all in one pack. So you can grab that. But honestly, the best deal is taking advantage of the discount of plays for the rest of the year. I talk about darts all the time, and this is the biggest darts tournament of the year. This is where we cash big. It starts on December 15th, and it goes for a couple weeks, and we will have plays for a while in that tournament. So just lock in the rest of the year for $199, and you're going to get all plays, all percentages, all sports. The pack this weekend's $35, so it just makes all the sense in the world to invest in the rest of the year to cash all of those plays. So that's Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com. I'm going to talk about the Jaguars and Browns, and people get on me about how I say the word Jaguars, and this is an Indiana thing. This is just how we say Jaguars up here, okay? So get over it.
Me too. Over here
okay,
too, Andy.
Good.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
Good. Yeah. So, I didn't know we were ripping on people pronouncing words in a different part of the country. Like, that happens all the time. I didn't know I was the only one.
Look at WagerTalk as a company. We have people from all over, like Canada and America.
World.
Like, obviously, the world. So, I mean, just listen to Prez. He's Canadian, but he sounds more Australian sometimes and South African. So yes. Hey, everybody talks different.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Jaguars and Browns, we don't have a lot of props out on this one. I'm assuming it's because we've got multiple injuries. We've got poor Christian Kirk. If you actually know what his actual injury is, you know he's going through a lot of pain and suffering right now. And shout out to him. His injury happened to my buddy in high school, actually, Andrew. So I actually know all the details about that one. We also got Trevor Lawrence, and so there's just not a lot of props out, but there is one that I like. And I like Jerome Brown over 14.5 receiving, and this is just a fade on this defense here for the Jaguars. They give up 7 catches for 49 yards receiving per game to running backs. Jerome Brown has had 3 and 4 catches the last 2 weeks, and it feels like Brown is the receiving back out of Kareem Hunt and Jerome Brown. So I wanted to pick one of these running backs to go over the receiving, and I think it's going to be Jerome Brown. He's had 33 and 14 yards the last 2 weeks. It's a really good matchup, and I love this total. I love these totals where you can get it on one good play. Like a 15-yard screen pass cashes this thing. So you could easily cash this like one catch, 16, 17 yards. So not a lot of props available. And this team of the Browns is really banged up. I saw an interesting stat that Myles Garrett is really banged up. He didn't have a tackle last week. He's dealing with a really bad shoulder injury. So I know in the chat, Jim Malero does a great job talking about sack props and tackles. If you're looking at the Browns, take a look at the injury report because maybe taking some unders it would be a way to go. So Jerome Brown over receiving, only thing I like in this game. All right, Andrew, coming to you. Next game that we have up is the Panthers at the Saints. What do you like in this game?
Not a whole lot. I'm not going to be watching this one. I'm not going to be probably betting much on this game. So that's just the truth. But Andy, when it comes down to it here, I'll tell you what, I was shocked to find this. I haven't talked to quarterback prop really yet. So I'll just say this. When you have quarterbacks that aren't doing very well, you always want to look to bet unders on those. And pretty much whoever's been the quarterback for the Panthers has not played well, obviously. And I think every week ownership and GMs are probably regretting drafting Bryce Young. But he's gone over his number in 7 of the last 10 games. His completions number is as low as 18 now. That's pretty low for completions. I mean, you don't really see it get that low. So I'm kind of interested by that. As far as Hubbard, is his rushing plus receiving. I mentioned before that if I'm ever taking rushing plus receiving, it's usually an under to kind of just get those extra yards, under 72.5. And then Kamara receiving, you've talked about it ad nauseum. That's kind of been a real consistent one. The dump offs after dump offs after dump offs have kind of been a consistent thing. But I had the New Orleans team total under last week, Andy, and that blew up in my face after I thought was a really, really strong first quarter and a half. So I don't really have a good read on this game. I'm probably going to stay off it. I'm curious about Adam Thielen because I went off him for a while. I think I remember asking you a couple weeks in the show what you thought about his unders. But really, his receptions have been the new play because even if he's not getting his yards, the sheer volume of, like I mentioned, the completions proper going over in the passing game, who are those going to? And you look at it, even in games that Thielen had not gone over his receiving, he's still like the headlines. I go on certain websites, the headlines for his stats are like, Thielen catches 7 for 40 yards, like just does not have a good game receiving yards wise, but able to get a lot of catches and still be in the play. So kind of would look towards that, but I think I'm probably going to pass this game overall.
I had a alt line parlay on, and one of the pieces was Bryce Young just to have 150 yards, and it was painful to watch. Like they had a hurry up offense and they handed it off 3 times in a row. Like that's how little they trust him. They had a Hail Mary and they made him throw it out of bounds. It was a Hail Mary from the 50 and the announcer he drops back and he just throws it in the stands. And they're like, oh, I guess they just wanted to run out they don't trust him to throw a Hail Mary. Oh my gosh.
But because they don't trust him, Andy, I think the completions prop is good because all the completions are pretty much like the run game. They're throwing it like 4 yards. So whenever he does throw it, he can't miss it because the leash is so short right now with him.
Yeah, it's brutal to watch. I was so mad at myself that I watched more than a half of the Panthers game. So
I'm mad at you for doing that.
Tune into Puck Time when we break down the St. Louis Blues and Columbus Blue Jackets if you want another game that nobody's staying up to watch. I have the Texans and the Jets. Not a lot of props. Again, injuries in this one. I'm keeping this one real simple, Andrew. Jets team total under 14.5. This is a team that, let's just go through the timeline and you tell me if this looks like a team ready to put up a bunch of points. So they have Zach Wilson. They benched Zach Wilson for Tim Boyle. Boyle is worse than Zach Wilson. They want to go back to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson tells them no. So then they just talk him into it, and then they release Tim Boyle and then hand the reins back to Zach Wilson. This is a real NFL team. This is an actual real franchise. And I will read you the point totals that the New York Jets have put up. They put up 8 against the Falcons. They had 13 against Miami. They exploded for 13 points against Miami, put up 6 against Buffalo, 12 against the Raiders, 6 against the Chargers. I mean, Zach Wilson was literally telling his team, "No, I'm not going to play." I've never heard of that before. In the middle of a season, a quarterback telling his team no. So there's no chance that there's no chance of betting anything positive for the Jets to happen. The Houston, they have a bad pass defense, but it's not like Zach Wilson's going to be able to exploit it. They got a good run defense, so I think it's tough sledding this week. I would look to actually fade Breece Hall in the running game, but maybe take some overs and maybe his receiving props when they come out. But keeping it simple in this one, just take the Jets under 14.5. This team is an absolute dumpster fire. So, Rams and the Ravens. Andrew, we have a question in the chat. Jason, are the Rams receivers worth taking this week facing the number 2 defense? Puka Nakua's banged up, not 100%. I will say this, guys, check the weather. It's the time of year where you have to check the weather, and it's 93% rain at this point. And I looked at this game earlier this week. It was 80% on Monday. Now it's 93%. So there is a very, very high probability that this game could be played in rain. So make sure you're checking weather report if you're going in on some of these props. So, Andrew, what did you find in the Rams and Ravens from the props perspective?
Yeah, that's definitely a factor. Weather's a factor in a lot of games actually this week. But I will also say that whether it's point spread betting, total betting, or props, check to what the number usually is for a player and look at what it is in this week based on kind of the matchup and try and decide for yourself if you think the weather is that much of an impact, right? Because sometimes you see people just load up on unders. Yeah, this guy's going to have a horrible game. There's some rain in this city. And then he has the exact same game he usually does. So be aware of weather and how much the points and the numbers are actually being adjusted due to that, because, it's all about the wind. And I think, Andy, you've touched on that in the past as well. I want to look towards the under on receiving yards for Isaiah Likely. To me, I think you saw him have 40-yard game. And, there's that whole theory of taking the next man up. Mark Andrews goes down, take the next tight end. But, it's not like the Ravens just have a game plan to go to the tight end position. They have a game plan to go to one of their best players. And I think that's going to be kind of a misconception people have, is that it's not like immediately you can just replace Mark Andrews and they're just going to go right back to the tight end position, continue to give those targets. We did see it once already. I understand that. But I'm actually going to look towards the under for him. Look, when I looked at his numbers throughout the year, it's not like he was ever a part of the game very much. They didn't give him very much experience, very many touches at all. Receiving game, yards after catch, none of that is really there. I feel like he's going to be kind of just like that safety blanket. And in this game, I do expect other guys to be able to spread the field. So start things off with an under. You talked about Kyren Williams. I mean, I was watching back our show last week, Andy. I did like your little chant that you had there, cheering him on, and he ended up putting together a good week for you again. But I'm actually going to look towards his receiving yards. We talk about the Baltimore defense here. I like running backs over on their receiving yards, and I feel like this is going to be one of those dump-off situations where the Rams are taking a long time to drive the field, trying to carve this Ravens defense up. I don't think they're going to be able to go deep on them. I don't think they're going to be able to have these explosive plays. So Kyren Williams, his number is 18.5 receiving yards. And then overall, I have to look at Zay Flowers on his receiving yards to the over. He's had a really, really good run over the past few weeks. And honestly, I don't really trust this Rams team. Last week, if this is a perfect example of this Rams team, if you're a watcher, if you watch games and people say, well, you can just handicap off numbers and analyze stats and things like that. If you watch the Rams game, you know that, in my opinion, they barely covered that game. They got, I think it was like 17 points in the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game. So I wouldn't be too excited about that team. I also think their defense has kind of had some good and favorable matchups over the last few weeks. So I think Zay Flowers is a good one. I think I might even look at anytime touchdown prop for Odell Beckham. We'll see if we can do that. But I think you talked about Kyren Williams. His one to me on the receiving yards is probably my favorite in this game. just based on the fact that I think they're going to have to utilize, the running backs in the passing game. Once they're down a considerable amount of points, which I do think they will be, they can't just run the ball. You talked about it with Bryce Young. You can't be marching the field trying to come back in a game and handing the ball off. So you eventually have to get into the receiving game. But I think this one should be a good game for the Ravens. I'm excited about it. And I want to know what you think about that, about Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, because I've read a lot of reports where people are like, next man up mentality. He's a new guy to look at for prop bets. I don't think that's always the case. I don't think just because some guy's coming up as the next guy in that position, they're the guy to take over. So I'm looking at his unders, actually.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's going to have opportunity, but he's not as good as Mark Andrews. Of course not. Like, I mean, how many tight ends in the league are as good as Mark Andrews? Not that many. So, yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. Yes, and the Kyron Williams was a good one. It was hilarious when McVay said after the game, "Well, Kyron's on my fantasy team. That's why I had him run for that last touchdown." That was funny. So, yeah, I like the Ravens in this one. Their track record against Lamar Jackson's track record against NFC teams is insanity. If you've just never seen Lamar Jackson before and the Baltimore Ravens, it's a track meet, and all of a sudden you're down 3 scores. So I like the Ravens in that one. So can I do my little thing about the wind and how over exaggerated the wind can be? I do this every once in a while. So we make a big deal about the wind, and it is important. You need to look at the wind, but 20-mile-an-hour winds outside the stadium is not going to affect the passing game. It's just not. I'm telling you. That is outside the stadium. Inside the stadium, you are surrounded by walls, and those walls block the wind. So, yes, in the parking lot, there are 20-mile-an-hour winds. And then the other thing they do is they go, look how windy it is. And they take these pictures of flags on top of the stadiums where it's like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Andrew, guess where they don't play the games? On top of the stadiums. So I only worry about the wind if it gets up to 30-mile-an-hour sustained winds. I think it's ridiculous when I hear people say, well, I'm worried about the wind. Like, these are professional athletes. Like, Patrick Mahomes can still throw the ball if it's 20-mile-an-hour winds to Travis Kelce.
Imagine in golf,
I'm telling
Andy,
you, he can.
If they were doing that in golf. Imagine in golf if they showed like some building instead of showing the flag on the pin. Because in golf, it makes sense. They're showing the flag on the pin. But you're right. They're not showing the top of the building up in the upper bowl where nobody can even see the game. It is a good point.
Yeah, so don't overreact about 20-mile-an-hour wind. Like when they're like, well, 15 to 20-mile-an-hour winds. Like, who cares? Like, it's not. These guys are the best athletes in the world. It's not. Oh no, the 15-mile-an-hour breeze got him. So be careful. It's a square play, Andrew. But if he's good enough to play, I think he's good enough for us to bet on. And if he flies over this total, which I think he is, we're never going to see a total like this. Last night it was 66.5 when I did this write up, and I am absolutely taking the over. I would take this anything over 70. The Raiders have given up 290 yards passing per game the last 3. Andrew, he's had 85 yards or more in every game this season besides the one he got hurt in. I know Kirk Cousins isn't throwing him the ball. It's not like Kirk Cousins was lighting the world on fire. I just think whoever's at quarterback is going to be able to throw Justin Jefferson the ball against a very suspect secondary. So, like I said, if Jefferson goes out and has 6 catches for 90 yards or 7 for 110 and a touchdown, you're never going to see a total like this. So I want to jump on Justin Jefferson now. If he's good enough to play for the Vikings and they say that he's, pretty much 100%, then yeah, he's good enough for us to put in our fantasy lineups and for us to bet overs. So on the same team, I'm actually going to kind of parlay this with Alexander Mattison under 50.5 rushing. So he went over the last 2 weeks, but one was against Denver, who still remains the worst rush defense in the league. The other was against Chicago. The Raiders, they're bad against the pass. They're really good against the run. 8th best in yards allowed rushing per game the last 3 games. He only had 10 carries last week. AJ, that's a little bit alarming to me. Against a good rush defense, if you're only getting 10, 12 carries, it's going to be tough to get over here. And now Justin Jefferson is back. So if you're the Vikings, do you want Alexander Mattison running the ball or do you want Justin Jefferson catching the ball and, against a bad secondary? So I think the Vikings are going to have success throwing. I think they lean on the passing game. So I'll take Madison going under rushing, take Justin Jefferson over his receiving in this game. Seahawks and 49ers. Man, the 49ers have been the gift that keeps on giving in the prop market. I mean, Brock Purdy, MVP in the props betting market the last like 3 or 4 weeks. This guy just his yards, his touchdowns. What do you like in Seahawks and 49ers?
I'm glad you said it like that, Andy, because everybody loves to rip apart Brock Purdy, say it's not fair that he's in the MVP discussion. He's a game manager. You know what? He's a game manager because his players are great. So he just puts the ball in their hands consistently. He does his job. But, and there's a but here, he really does not have to throw the ball very much. He's gone under his pass completions prop in 8 of his last 10 games, 4 of last 5. He does not need to throw the ball very much, especially when they get these leads. They have a deep running back room. It's not just Christian McCaffrey. I think it's really worth looking towards the under on Brock Purdy on his pass completions. Maybe even to be safe, look at the pass attempts in case he's just super sharp and has a really, really strong first half with the completions. But, it just pisses me off, for lack of better words, when I hear people say that, he's not an MVP candidate, he's not a good quarterback because of the talent around him. Well, we'll never know, guys, because guess what? There is talent around him. So he puts the ball in their hands and they make plays. So under on completions, I think, is just kind of a testament to how well his team plays overall. I mentioned on Monday I wanted to get a good number on the rushing plus receiving for Christian McCaffrey. The fact of the matter is you're not getting a great number, but it's 114.5, but that's as expected here. He put up 139 against the Seahawks just a couple weeks ago. Last time out, 133 for him against the Eagles. So the fact of the matter is there's always one that makes up for the other, whether it's the receiving game having that big one or the rushing game. He is probably one of the only guys in the league right now that when I'm betting the rushing plus receiving, I'm not betting the under. As I've stated, usually I'm an under better when I bet these combo plays, not with Christian McCaffrey. And people will ask me, well, if it's a blowout, then, aren't you worried about his usage? Well, you know what? He's creating the blowout. He's the guy responsible for the blowout taking place. So he's someone that I'm looking at. Obviously, I mentioned him before. George Kittle, I actually want to look towards the under on his receptions. I've talked about him a bunch of times before, and I like looking at Kittle props, Andy, in big games for the Niners, in really close games that I expect to be tight. But this game in particular, when it starts to slip away, as I expect it may, when the game doesn't really seem to be very close, he doesn't really get targets. He's not really involved. They run the ball out a lot more, and there's a reason why I'm looking at receptions. He could have 1 or 2 really good, plays in the receiving game and go over his yards, but I don't think he'll get the touches there. And then I want to look towards the under on Geno Smith. I'm trying to find what the number was. 242.5. He's played this Niners team 4 times with the Seahawks. Averaged 217 yards. Number's 242. So, a lot of times that I used to say, well, he's going to have no choice but to throw the ball. They're going to be a team that's going to be down in this game. It doesn't matter because I mentioned about the run game and sometimes how long the San Fran 49ers take to march the field. There's not going to be enough time for Geno to make big plays like that. So I feel like that number is a little bit too big, and I'll take under 242.5 passing yards for Geno Smith. It's going to be a tough day for the Seahawks.
Yeah, they've had a lot of tough days. It doesn't look to be getting any easier. We got Bills and the Chiefs, Broncos and the Chargers, and Eagles at Cowboys to finish up. Bills at Chiefs, I got to be honest, Andrew, I scoured and scoured and scoured. The props are so dialed in this game, and I feel like sometimes we see that. These marquee matchups, like we know the attention's going to be on there, and everyone wants to bet the props. And this is just a reminder, you don't have to bet every game. You don't have to bet a bunch of props just because the game is exciting. I found this game very difficult. But in the end, we got to play Josh Allen to throw an interception, don't we? It's every single week. This guy's thrown an interception in 8 straight games, 10 out of 12 games this season. This guy has 13 interceptions in 12 games. Like we rip Zach Wilson and Trubisky. This guy's throwing it to the other team more than he is in his own team. My only worry about this play is that the Chiefs only have 6 interceptions this season, but this is you play this every week. Like if you parlay McCaffrey anytime touchdown and Josh Allen to throw an interception, that's probably a plus money parlay that you've hit damn near every week this season. So for that one, it's just you got to play it. And then Dalton Kincaid, I'm actually going to look at under 37.5 receiving. The Chiefs, they only allow 37 yards receiving per game to tight ends. Now, Dalton Kincaid has gone over in 6 straight games, but Dawson Knox is back. So it looks like he's going to get back to that where they're kind of splitting some of these catches. Who knows if Dawson Knox is going to get a full workload? My guess is he would be pretty close. But I think this number is going to surprise a lot of people because they're going to look at Kincaid and go, wow, he's been crushing this total. And if you haven't noticed that Dawson Knox is back, I think you could get burned on this one. So I think the books are being very sneaky with this number. So I'll take Kincaid under, but definitely Josh Allen is the best way to play this one, throw in an interception. So Broncos at the Chargers. Andrew, tell everyone one more time what you have up and where we can find you at.
7-3 NFL prop run. Andy, you talked about volume, how it can be frustrating. You know, I was leaving winners on the desk, right? There were so many plays on Prop It Up I was giving out, whether it be Friday or Monday. I was like, man, I wish I made the official card. But week by week, we started to pick apart the card, couple plays each Sunday. There's so many props available, guys. You want to protect those bankrolls, as we always say. And now I'm on a 7-3 run in the NFL prop market, on a really good run with NHL team totals and college basketball team totals as well. Really good time to utilize that special. Rest of the year, $199. You'll get every single sport. You know, it's no point in just jumping all over one 5% play or one big weekend. Get every single sport that we're involved in. And between Andy and I, like I keep talking about, a lot of different sports that we're covering. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. Andy, let's start with Russell Wilson over 26.5 rushing yards for him. I just feel like he's looked like his old self more. And you know, if we can really say his old self, because he has gotten a lot older, 44, 34, 30, and 30 again is what we've seen him go over in 4 of his last 5 games. He's taken off quite a bit, and I feel like it's helped open things up for the receiving game as well. The more he rushes, the more they kind of keep the defense guessing. And this Chargers team, people think they just struggle against the pass. Well, they're not really great against the rush either, especially against quarterbacks. So I'll look towards over for Russell Wilson. And then there was one more ahead here with Austin Eckler, another one, Andy, and this is going to kind of, go against what I keep saying about my combo bets, but I like the over on his rushing plus receiving. I looked at this one for a long time, and I'm usually a trends guy. I don't like to go against when a guy's gone under something in 4 last 5, 7 last 10, 9 of last 10. But this to me is a matchup that's very favorable. You know, the number is 80.5 for the rushing plus receiving. Denver ranks 24th in receiving yards and 32nd in rushing yards. I think if the Chargers want to have success, they have to establish the run. They have to get the ball in Eckler's hand. And lately, they just haven't really been doing that. They haven't really been giving him like an 80.5 is kind of a high number. I know it's adjusted to the defensive stats, of course, of the Chargers here. But I think this is a big week for them. I think that he's going to take advantage of a really, really good matchup. And this is probably the week I've liked Eckler the most over the last handful. I've actually been fading him. I'm turning the page, and I think over 80.5. And the reason why is that I think that it could be a dominant on one or the other. Like they could abandon the run and just keep throwing it to him. So I don't really want to isolate just one. And I think 80.5. And just looking at some of these numbers, like, he's gotten close to that 70, 64, 70 again. And then he had his big one against the Lions where he had 115 rushing plus receiving. So, give me 10 more than your average right now, Eckler, and then we'll get over this number. So I like that one.
I mean, the matchup doesn't get any better. It's the worst rush defense in the league. So it's time, Austin. Your fantasy managers, your prop bettors are ready. Like, let's go, man.
Don't make me regret this, Austin. Don't make me regret
seriously. I will fire off an angry tweet. So, Eagles at Cowboys last game before we get out of here. So if you have not, please hit the like button and leave us a comment. And don't forget to grab a 5% best bet that is up. It includes all NFL plays as well as our college football play of the week on a 22-3 run in all football. Grab that at WagerTalk.com and take advantage of the end of the year special. All plays discounted down from $299 down to $199. All plays, all percentages. Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com. Eagles at Cowboys. I guess my overall theme with this is I'm just fading this Eagles secondary. It is so glaring how bad they are, how tired they are, how beat up they are. Their schedule has been brutal. They're just playing these pass-heavy teams nonstop, and I don't see how they fix these problems. So if you're playing this, do it anyway. I love all overs for the Dallas Cowboys, and I love that the Cowboys are aggressive. I love that they have no problem running up the score. It makes it so much easier for us prop bettors. They've put up 30-plus points in all their home games, several of them going into the 40s. So how am I going to attack this? My first one is Dak Prescott over 2.5 touchdown passes at plus 135. I just love this price. Andrew, Dak has had over 2.5 touchdown passes in 5 out of his last 6 games, and we're getting this at plus 135. It is such a great price. The Eagles have given up 27 touchdown passes this season, second worst only to Washington. And what's scary for them is 15 of those 27 TD passes have come in the last 5 games. So it's just this big step up in competition, these elite quarterbacks and offenses, and they're throwing all over them. So I like Dak Prescott. You can obviously go with CeeDee Lamb. You could go with Brandon Cooks. All these guys might go over, but I'm going to settle on Jake Ferguson over 42.5. 7 catches for 91 yards against Philly in the first game, 6 for 77 against Seattle last week, and the Eagles give up 49 yards receiving per game to tight end. So I think you could pick just about anybody. I almost want to take unders on Tony Pollard because the Eagles' rush defense is so good. I just don't even know why Dallas would even bother running the ball that much. I mean, maybe just to keep them a little bit honest, but it wouldn't surprise me if Pollard had like 9 rush attempts and Dak throws it like 45 times. So this is a Dallas pass game all day long in this one. And I also don't mind the Dallas Cowboys team total over 27.5 at home. They're just lights out. And Philly, listen, Philly's going to do all they can to win this game. But after this, don't forget, they get Seattle, they get the Giants twice, and they get the Cardinals. So a great 4-game stretch for them to rest, get healthy for the playoff run. So I just think it's a brutal part of the schedule for Philly. I like Dallas to take advantage. So, and yeah, in the chat, yeah, CeeDee Lamb touchdown prop. Like you could even go with Ferguson touchdown. You could go with Cooks touchdown. If I like Dak to throw 3 touchdowns or more, yeah, these guys are going to catch touchdowns. So
I've been impressed with Cooks, Andy, in a big way.
He's
I think
healthy.
that he's kind of the world focusing on Lamb because Lamb's been so consistent. I feel like it's almost like dropped the respect level for Cooks, and the number is very good each week. I like that one as well.
Yeah, he's finally healthy. I don't think a lot of people realize how hurt he was at the end of, or at the beginning of the year. That MCL injury was big. So he's healthy. He looks good. It's good to see. Someone asked in the chat, AJ Brown, if he's versus Bland. Yeah, you absolutely could. Andrew and I talk about low volume. I'm going to keep it simple in this game. The easiest matchup is the Cowboys passing against this Philly team. So that's the way I'll attack this game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We got a loaded slate for Sunday's games. Andrew and I both have plays up that are available now at WagerTalk.com. Go check those out and take advantage of that end of the year special. Instant discount, no promo code needed. $299 knocked all the way down to $199. All sports, all percentages. Thanks, guys, for checking in. Hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Good luck on all your plays, and we will be back on Monday to break down Monday Night Football. Have a great weekend. We'll